Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you joining. We're going to give folks just 1 minute here to log in before we get started. Well, welcome everybody. Really appreciate you joining. We'll go ahead and get started here. The purpose of today's press conference is to discuss a petition that some 3,000 local energy workers and their families and supporters have signed and are going to deliver to the governor, asking that he prioritize domestic energy production over imports. We're going to hear from some of those employees, as well as legislators who are concerned about some of the proposals being floated by the governor and others that will hurt domestic energy production and make us more reliant on imports from foreign countries. Then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So with that, right now I'm going to kick it over to Sabrina, our Vice President of Communications, to do some housekeeping before we get started.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. Just wanted to let everybody know that we are recording this broadcast. That's especially helpful for our broadcast media who need a backup recording, and I'll send that out with today's press release. After our speakers deliver their prepared remarks, we'll open it up to Q&A. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice the Q&A tab. Just click there and type your question, and we will answer them live. If you have any problems or questions following today's event, please contact me at Sabrina, S-A-B-R-I-N-A, at CIPA.org. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You know, every day Californians demand about 1.5 million barrels of oil in order to meet their energy needs. And sadly, 70% of that energy is tankered in to our ports. Most of that from foreign countries, the number one country being Saudi Arabia. So every barrel not produced in California under our strictest environmental rules is a barrel that we have to import from Saudi Arabia or some other foreign country who may not share our values and our environmental goals. We should not be exporting our environmental responsibility, nor should we be vulnerable to foreign sources. The rest of the country has largely become energy independent and are even exporting energy. But in California, unfortunately, we're going in the opposite direction. And again, it's important to note that that is on the supply side. The demand stays steady. And it is true that in the pandemic, we've seen a drop in demand because jets are largely grounded. But as that demand comes back, when the virus is solved, we're going to see a need for energy like we did before. In the first 2 years of the governor's administration, we did not see a reduction in demand for fossil fuels. And so the question isn't whether or not we're going to use it or not. The question is, where should it come from? So when extremists or politicians want to reduce California oil production when demand is still high, they're advocating for increased imports from Saudi Arabia. And they should be asked how that aligns with their values. That also hurts workers and the local economy. And those are some of the voices you're going to hear today. Because of that, workers and local leaders are making their voice heard. Over 1,000 of them showed up at a board meeting a year ago at the Board of Supervisors in Kern County, as you know. And this is a similar action trying to make their voices heard. Now over 3,000 have signed a petition that they're going to deliver to the governor by week's end. And it basically says 4 things. 1, it's better to produce locally than send jobs, taxes, wealth, and our wealth to foreign countries. Number 2, we produce under the strictest environmental rules in the world. Imports are exempted from California's strict rules, including our climate change program, which we are ahead of targets in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We as an industry are under that program, imports are not. Number 3, it provides vital funding for local government programs as well as charities. Number 4, it creates affordable and reliable energy to help protect against rolling blackouts that we've seen and may be on the block going forward. So for those reasons, workers are saying it makes more sense to produce it here than to tanker it in. So it's not about demand or use of oil. It's about where and how you get your energy and who benefits. Do we import from countries who don't share our values, or do we produce it here under our strict environmental protections and employ workers, pay taxes, support charities, and help California recover from the pandemic? With that, here are some of the voices of industry who have signed the petition and want their voice to be heard in this debate.
Hi, my name is Moreno, and the oil and gas industry has played a significant part in my career by allowing me to put my degree to work right out of college and work with A-grade professionals. It has also given me the opportunity to work in the community that I grew up in and be a part of its continued success. This would not be possible without the oil and gas industry. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Javier Zavala, and I started in the oil and gas industry 10 years ago. As a veteran, they gave me the opportunity to start this career with no background experience in the oil and gas. And it's just grown over the past 10 years, provided for my family. I was able to buy a home, go through college, and my wife has been able to get her doctorates. She's now a licensed psychologist for the state of California. And then 3 kids. Noah, the oldest, he's playing baseball, private school. Then my daughter, Mia, she's also in school, loves to dance. And I have a newborn, Joshua, he's only a few months old. And, I've been able to provide for my family thanks to a great career in oil and gas. And it's helped out so many veterans like myself, but it has also provided jobs to thousands of people across California. So I would hope that you'd consider any type of negative impact towards our industry when you go to vote, and think of people like myself who it's provided for over the past 10 years.
Well, here are some more voices who have signed the petition after we hear from local legislators. Just to mention, there have been several things that have been proposed, so you get a sense of what we're talking about when we're talking about efforts to shut down domestic production. One has been an arbitrary, unscientific setback of all production in California. In Kern County, they just did an ordinance update, some of the most stringent rules in the world when it comes to oil and gas production, heavy mitigation measures. That is science-based. Making a number up out of thin air is not science. Secondly, there's been a call for a fracking ban. Although that constitutes a small percentage of the wells that are actually drilled, it does have a substantial impact on the production that actually goes to Californians. There's been a moratorium that's ongoing on cyclic steam operations. And then there's just been the general talk about phasing out in-state domestic production. separate from demand falling. So in other words, even regardless of if demand for oil falls or not, there are those that are calling for the phase out of production, 70% of which is in Kern County. And that's becoming real now with very slow permitting. And we have companies that are ready and able to put people to work, to pay taxes, to support local programs, if government does their job and reviews the permit applications that are there and have been there for several years. So with that, we'd welcome some legislators who've joined us and want to express their thoughts on this issue. First up is Assembly Member Sharon Quirk Silva from the 65th Assembly District.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. I represent North Orange County, which is Fullerton, Buena Park, West Anaheim, Stanton, La Palma, and Cypress. And I just wanted to join here with CIPA to note some of my thoughts about the governor's executive order. First, I'm a mother of 4 young adults who are going to be 24 to 31. They often give me firsthand a glimpse on what they're feeling. And I have to say, when that executive order came out, my son, who's 24, came in and said, "Mom, this is crazy. We really are going to try to, get rid of vehicles that are using gas or oil." And so we had a good conversation about that. But the point is that I too am concerned about climate change, our environment, and certainly our individual footprint. Everything from us now doing our own composting and so forth. But I'm also a teacher of 30 years. And as a teacher of 30 years, I know very well what it's like for young families. I had 4 young children, very close in age, to get up in the morning, get those kids off to school in a timely fashion, and even more of difficulty as a single parent, knowing many families that raise their kids alone. And so just a very, very basic fundamental issue is, as we look towards whether it's focusing on electric vehicles, one of the things we can't bypass and we can't really lose focus is our working families in California. And these working families many times inherit vehicles. They are not going to be first in line to buy the newest Tesla. We know that 75% of those vehicles are bought by people making over $100,000. We also know that just to be able to make sure you can get to work and back, pick up your children, all of these basic things, and then on top of that, to plan for making sure your car is charged, is right now not even in a realm for families to think about. Families right now are thinking about, how do I put food on my table? How do I make sure I can pay for my electricity? How do I make sure my family isn't going to fall into further duress because of the pandemic? So I am a big believer in looking towards the future in our climate. I'm a big believer in us looking at alternative fuels, but let's not make this burden harder on working families. And let's make sure they can get to work and back, do the jobs we need for California. Javier's story that we just heard on the video says it all. When we invest in families and we invest in our infrastructure, California is going to be that great state that we want it to remain to be. But let's keep investing here in California and work together for alternatives that are going to not make the burden be placed on our working families. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Really appreciate your remarks. Up next is Senator Shannon Grove from the 16th District, including our adopted hometown of Bakersfield. Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Oh, absolutely, Rock, and thank you for the opportunity to share a few words at this press conference. You know, the governor represents a state that has the largest and most industrious energy producing counties in the nation, and all of us know that. Jobs in these industries provide high paying careers and opportunities, experience, and a second chance for those of individuals that work in this industry to buy their first home, save for retirement, or just provide for their families. The industry also supports our firefighters, our first responders, our parks, and our schools. And almost exactly a year ago today, we listened to thousands of individuals plead their case to the governor in the Kern County Board of Supervisors chambers. We heard inspiring stories of families who were lifted out of poverty, former prisoners that were accomplishing things that they thought was impossible, making a six-figure salary and taking care of a family away from a crime ring. Kern County and Bakersfield's lifeblood is our oil fields. But the governor's attack on this industry won't just hurt the Central Valley. It impacts everyone in our state. 39 million Californians who live in this state benefit from the oil and gas industry, whether they realize it or not. The products supplied by this industry aren't just gas in our cars. It's asphalt on our roads. 50% of our electric vehicles are a byproduct of the petroleum industry. Medical equipment like heart valves, vitamins, trash bags, perfumes, phones, dentures, toothpaste, footballs our kids play with, sunglasses, and more. You really could go on and on about the petroleum byproducts that produce products that we use every day to make our life more convenient. It's simply unrealistic to think that there is a path forward in this state without the oil and gas industry. Over the last 30 years, California's reliance on oil has not decreased dramatically despite what many think. Instead, we've just been shifting our reliance into foreign regimes for this product that we use every day. In fact, in the year 1982, California produced 61% of our oil supply, and we only imported 5.6% from foreign nations. And in 2018, California produced only 31.1% of our oil supply, whereas we imported 57.5% from foreign nations. So the demand for our oil supply hasn't gone down. We as Californians and the governor is just importing that oil from foreign regimes. Instead, we're shipping millions and millions of dollars to foreign nations such as Saudi Arabia, Ecuador, or Iraq. These countries have dismal human rights records and little to no concern for the environment. And I want to share that in Kern County, we produce oil under the strictest regulatory environment in the entire world. There are some out there who understand that domestic production of oil is better for a variety of reasons, including national security and lower overall carbon footprint when we produce oil here. But there are others who throw these national arguments out the window because they're extreme environmental constituencies who don't support any production of oil in California, no matter the consequences that they have in other places. Producing California here does reduce producing oil here in California does reduce the carbon footprint globally. Again, like I said earlier, we produce oil under the strictest, most environmental policies that exist in the world. And compared to other nations that produce oil and have continuous oil spills, dismal human rights violations, that's not where we need to be producing this product. In order to stop this assault on our industry, we truly need a bipartisan action. I want to thank my Democrat colleagues for coming on. I know you've heard from one, you'll hear from others, because they understand that the oil industry affects even their districts. No community will be hit harder by the governor's actions than those of us here in Bakersfield and Kern County in the Central Valley. So I join oil producers, large and small, on calling on the governor to stop this assault on our industry, our Central Valley. And we need to keep these jobs here. These jobs that employ second chancers, that are a big deal for people that come out of the prison industry and have a job that pays a six-figure income to provide for their families. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on and share my thoughts on the oil industry. Rock, I really appreciate all the work that you and CIPA are doing to make sure that our oil industry here in California continues to survive and that we have domestic security and also jobs in the Central Valley. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you for always stepping up for our industry. Really appreciate it. You also mentioned that there is a bipartisan group out there that agree with you on this issue. We heard from Assemblywoman Quirk Silva. I also wanted to mention that Senator Hurtado, who's not able to be here in person, but did give us a statement, and I just wanted to read that. Senator said, families in major parts of my Central Valley Senate district rely on the good jobs provided by California's oil and gas industry. So far, no one has put forward a detailed, realistic plan to ensure oil and gas jobs in Central Valley transition to clean energy jobs with the same pay and benefit. These jobs must be front and center in any discussion of a post-oil California. So we appreciate that comment from Senator Hurtado. With that, our next person that's going to join us is Assemblyman Vince Fong, and we welcome him to share his thoughts on this issue. Assemblyman.
Thanks for having me. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you, can't see you. See your name.
Well, I'll just give my statement and then or my remarks, and then maybe we'll work out the visual.
Sure.
But I want to thank you for the opportunity. We all agree that energy independence is in the best interest of all Californians. Yet this governor's actions are doing the opposite. It will cause us to import more oil from foreign countries, shipping oil across thousands of miles of the ocean. We want California energy production by Californians. Kern County produces upwards of 75% of the state's oil consumption. The governor's actions will disproportionately devastate the district that I represent. This means even higher unemployment, and our local government won't have the revenues needed to support our community. And on top of that, it will hurt the local nonprofits that are doing tremendous work right now, who are supported by this essential industry. We are seeing an unprecedented, exodus from California because people are losing hope that the problems they are facing will be addressed. The governor's actions are not helpful and actually will just speed up the process where more Californians will leave our state. We have seen blackouts just last year, which disrupted and threatened the lives of so many people. Without natural gas and reliable energy provided by the petroleum industry, California will face more blackouts and energy challenges, which is unacceptable for such a large and advanced state. We need more energy production in our state, no doubt. The governor continues to make our problems worse with actions like he's taken. At the end of the day, these problems affect everyone, regardless of political party. This is why we are all here today to highlight the reality of the governor's actions. The common goal here is to help our state to function, to revitalize our economy, and to ensure the energy demands of our state are met. And I appreciate you leading this important conversation.
Thanks so much, really appreciate it. Our next speaker is Assemblyman Jim Patterson from the 23rd District. Assemblyman, thanks so much for taking the time to join us, and welcome.
Okay, I can unmute now. Can you hear me?
There you go.
And can you see me?
Can't see you, but can hear you.
I don't have control of my own iPad, so
No problem.
that usually when we're on Zooms like this, I can go up and make sure my video is going, but for some reason you're not letting me do that. there anything you can do on your end to give me back control?
Let's see. Let me check that out, but go ahead if we can hear you good. I know Vince had the same problem. So let me look into it.
Do you have someone else other than me right now you could go to? And what we may want to do is come back up with a different computer that we'll have control of.
It's not your computer, it's that you're logged in as an attendee rather than the panelist link. So.
Okay, well, I used the link that you provided to, I can leave now and come back up on the right link.
Either way you want to do it.
Well, go to the next individual and we'll try to fix this on our end.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for this.
So our next segment is actually a couple more of those voices from energy workers who wanted to share their perspective on why they signed the petition. So we'll go to that now.
My name is Gabriela Gonzalez. I work for California Resources Corporation as an external affairs advisor. The oil and gas industry has played a large role in my family. My husband also works for the industry. And because of that, we've been able to buy a home, provide for our parents, and start a new family. And so if the industry were to go away, it would be detrimental to our livelihood. I am proud to work for CRC. I'm proud to work for a company that provides clean, reliable energy to our community. And I hope that we can continue to provide energy for many years to come.
Grayson, I work for Sentinel Peak Resources. I've been in this industry now for 29 years. It has been very good to me, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't see that rely on this industry. It's a clean industry. My job for the industry is to keep 10 and 10. It's the safety involved. There's so many different things that are involved with my job with Sentinel Peak, but it's just not just me, it's everyone in the industry. It's been very good to me. Both my older two children are in college, and that's because Dad is helping them fund it. So that before you think about taking that away from not only myself, but the countless people that you don't see, this industry is important.
And we'll have a link to those videos and others at the conclusion of today. With that, wanted to see if we wanted to go back to Assemblyman Patterson, if you wanted to share some remarks.
Still no video? I just unmuted. I was given control of my mute, but I was not given control of my video.
Unfortunately, yes, it looks like we're only getting your audio.
Yeah, all right. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Eliminating oil and natural gas in California really is a foolish decision. It means depriving people of reliable and affordable personal transportation and reliable and affordable electricity. And it also means that we will still have to import huge amounts of it from other places, as has been said. We are sort of in a circumstance where the powers that be in Sacramento are sort of giving us a 1-2 punch when it comes to our personal transportation and our electricity. What do I mean by that? We are paying huge new gasoline taxes and automobile registration fees. It's supposed to go into providing improvements for our highways, roads, and streets, et cetera. And yet, there is a bias against capacity building on our streets, which basically means we're being put on a road diet. The leadership in California is essentially trying to force people out of their cars and into public transportation. We are running into that in Central California right now. We have highways 99, 41, 198 that have been widened over the years, and yet there are huge gaps in between these 4 lanes. They're back down to 2. And it's increasingly difficult for us to get those widened because of the bias against the street and road capacity building. Now, I want you to think about that for the single mom with 2 kids, both in strollers, trying to make ends meet, trying to get them to school, try to get to their appointments. And they are certainly not going to be able to afford an electric vehicle. They are using oil and natural gas to reliably and affordably use personal transportation. Now, try doing that on a bus. That's impossible. Let me talk about electricity as well. I mean, it's the same thing. We are foolishly trying to run a 21st century economy, the 5th largest in the world, on electricity produced basically by wind and solar. The reality is natural gas keeps the lights on in California. What this state is doing is essentially warring against the physics of electricity. You have to have ample supply to meet the demand, and the grid has to be balanced or it goes dark. And that's what we're running into now. So there is a definite connection between eliminating oil and natural gas to depriving people of fundamental personal opportunities to live their life reliably and affordably. And I mentioned personal transportation and the use of electricity. The other reality here has been previously mentioned. If we eliminate oil and natural gas, think about what we're doing to those who are receiving the paychecks. And we've heard testimony about 6-figure incomes and all of that. Can I ask the question, who in the state capitol cares about people like that? It seems as if those who are making the rules have transportation, oftentimes people driving them in SUVs and taking them to where they live comfortably and have people to do things for them and reasonable paychecks to be in the California legislature. Who's thinking about the people that are going to be deprived of fundamental freedom of personal transportation and an affordable and a reliable electricity? The result of these decisions are going to be huge burdens on the very people that the Sacramento leadership up here says they care about. And so I think that this is a very foolish approach. It is receiving widespread and bipartisan pushback as you're hearing. But I really believe that what's most important is that those who have signed the petitions have the opportunity to have their voices and their stories heard. Because every one of those signing the petition may very well be one of those deprived of a good paycheck, deprived of reliable and affordable personal transportation, and be forced to decide whether or not to pay the rent or pay the electricity bill. That's what this is coming to. And I just think that this is foolish, it's counterproductive, and it is no way to try and run a 21st century economy without oil, natural gas, and electricity that is reliable, affordable, and is baseline and is there whenever we need it. The alternative is we're going to rely on other countries to provide this to us, and we're going to have to go find electricity from other states at much higher costs to import that electricity to keep the lights on. California is becoming an island of policy that is forcing people to have to decide to leave this place to find affordability and personal freedom and retire out of California rather than retire to it. These are the consequences in the real lives of real people. And I'm going to be joining all of those who remind the powers that be in Sacramento, these are the people that you are marginalizing, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Thanks so much, Assemblyman. I really appreciate that. And you're right to point out that there is growing criticism of the governor's energy policy. I read in the Sacramento Bee yesterday from Assemblyman Jim Wood, Assemblyman Jim Cooper, other Democrats, that they're concerned about the governor focused on subsidizing wealthy districts and wealthy people by having electric car subsidies rather than helping small business in the time of a pandemic. And I think that speaks to what we're talking about here as well. With that, that's the conclusion of our remarks. Really appreciate everybody attending, and we would open it up now for Q&A. Please feel free to send through Q&A link any questions you have for myself, the assembly members that have spoke, and we'd be happy to answer those now. While that's waiting for those questions, I see Assemblyman Fong has video now. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So as I stated in the beginning too, just to let you know, we did have about 3,000 signers to the petition. It will be delivered to the governor's office this week, and hoping to interact with them on those voices from the Central Valley, which I know the governor wants to help, and he pledged to help in his campaign. And we want to be at the table. We want to be a partner in achieving that. And we can be, if given the opportunity, to employ these people, give them high-paying jobs, and meet the energy demands of all Californians.
We are still awaiting any questions from the media about today's event. Perhaps Assemblyman Fong, since you have video now for our friends who are watching on television and want your video for their stories, could you briefly restate your remarks?
Sure. You know, as I said it earlier, you know, we all agree that we need energy independence in our state. It's in the best interest of all Californians. Yet the governor's actions are doing the exact opposite. It's going to cause us to import more oil from foreign countries, shipping oil across thousands of miles of ocean. And we want California energy production produced by Californians. And for facts, you know, California produces 463,000 barrels of oil a day, making us and California the sixth largest producer in the United States. Kern County produces 75% of that. Californians consume 1.8 million barrels a day. So if we aren't able to increase our domestic production, we have no choice as a state to import that from foreign countries. So there are real world consequences to California's failed energy policies. We need the governor to stop a headline driven energy policy. We need a common sense one. Kern County is going to be an area that is disproportionately affected by the governor's actions. This means higher unemployment in the Central Valley. Our local governments won't have the revenues needed to support needed services. And on top of that, it will continue to hurt our local nonprofits who are working overtime right now, trying to provide needed services, but who rely on the support by this essential industry. We're seeing an unprecedented exodus from California because people in California are losing hope that problems they are facing aren't being addressed, as mentioned by the earlier speakers. The governor's actions are not helpful in addressing that. We've seen blackouts just last year, which disrupted and threatened the lives of so many people in our state. Without natural gas and reliable energy provided by the petroleum industry, California will face more blackouts and energy challenges, which is completely unacceptable for such a large and advanced state. We need more energy production in our state. The governor continues to make our problems worse with actions like he's taken. And more importantly, at the end of the day, these problems that we're outlining are bipartisan. Regardless of political party, we need to have a real discussion to develop a path forward that provides energy independence in California. That's why we're all here today, to highlight the reality of the governor's actions. The common goal here is to help our state function and to ensure the energy demands of our state are met. So thanks again for your leadership.
Thank you.
We have a question from David Kaplan at KBAK television. He's wondering how many jobs in Kern County and the San Joaquin region would be affected by the governor's plan.
Well, I think in direct jobs, you're talking 8,000 to 10,000 direct jobs from our industry, and but that's just direct jobs of sort of members of CIPA, oil producers. They obviously contract with a lot of folks, including cement trucks, trucking companies, drilling companies, insurance, accountants, lawyers. And so when you start counting them, you get multiple times as many folks. The other thing too is to point out that 7 of the 10 largest property taxpayers in Kern County are oil companies. And so then you start talking about firefighters, educators, being able to pave our roads, being able to put police on the street. And so when you start adding all of those impacts, you're definitely talking about tens of thousands of people.
I'm not seeing any additional questions from the media. We'll give you one final shot for our partners in the media to ask questions. And otherwise, if you have follow-up questions, you can contact me by email at sabrina@cipa.org.
You're on mute. You were on mute during that, Sabrina, so.
David Kaplan has another follow-up question. He wants to know how the governor's plan would affect Bakersfield specifically, since Bakersfield relies heavily on oil jobs.
Well, I outlined at the beginning some of the proposals that we've seen both out of the governor's office and others. And I'll go to those now. And a couple of them are very specific to Kern County. For instance, the fracking ban. Almost 100% of all well stimulation occurs in Kern County. So when somebody from San Francisco is proposing to shut down fracking, what they're saying is, we in San Francisco want to stop what the people in Kern County are doing. And so that is the other part of this debate, is that you have people from affluent parts of the state who are trying to put their philosophy onto the land use decisions of people in Kern County and other counties within the Central Valley. I also talked about cyclic steam, again, primarily happening in Kern County. And then lastly, about permitting, when just given the nature of oil production in California, where 70% of all production happens in Kern County, that means if you have slow permitting, it's likely that 70+% of those permits are in Kern County. And so in those ways, it's really hurting Kern County disproportionately to other parts of the state.
Let me just add that that the impact to Bakersfield and Kern County, I mean, directly as mentioned by Rock, is jobs. We need to support these careers, but then the ripple effects to our local economy is tremendous. I mean, we need, in terms of housing and people being able to pay their mortgages and their bills and they're just supporting their families. Of course, it's going to impact our local cities and counties, as Rock mentioned. The needed revenue to the county and the city supports basic services, which we all rely on. And as Senator Grove mentioned, the byproducts of petroleum is in our everyday lives: our shoes, our phones, our eyeglasses, the iPad, and the laptops, and everything we use in our everyday lives, our medical devices. All of those things are supported by our local, energy producers. And if you look at just how much Californians pay for imported oil, Californians pay about $25 billion a year for imported oil. We would prefer, and I think it's the more responsible policy for our state, is that let's have more oil produced by Californians. It would create more jobs in Kern County, but it would also produce more jobs throughout the state of California, which would make us energy independent. And it would actually revitalize our economy faster. As we can see, we're in a pandemic-induced recession. We need to do everything we can to be revitalizing every industry in California. And the petroleum industry is essential, not because I said it, it's because the governor's administration says it, and it's because it's needed to power our state. If we can't power our state, if we can't keep the lights on, if we can't heat our homes, if we can't provide the energy needed to cook meals for our family, that's what's being produced by all these local individuals that you're hearing from. These are real consequences if we don't get these things right. And we need to get more energy and produce more energy in California, and we can do it right here in Kern County. Kern County is the model of how we need to be drafting and producing an energy policy. We can do it all.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you bring up a very good point on byproducts, which the senator also brought up. It's important to point out that less than half of consumption of oil in California is due to gasoline. The other uses are diesel for transportation, jet fuel, and then all of the plethora of uses when it comes to making medical devices, including medicines, and the asphalt, and the other things that both Sim and Fong and others have pointed out. And so it's important to know that we're not just talking about gasoline. The governor has said he wants to phase out the internal combustion engine in 15 years. Even if that was achievable, which we don't think it is, but even if it were, number one, you would still have the vast majority of cars on the street running on gasoline. Number two, it does nothing relative to diesel-powered trucks. It does nothing to jet fuels in planes, and it does nothing to the other byproducts. And for that reason, you could get rid of all internal combustion engine cars in California, and you would still need every drop of domestic production here in California.
Yeah. To that point, and for David Kaplan's question, I mean, to support the 145 airports in California, that requires 13 million gallons of aviation fuel. That is the demand right now, and that should be produced by Californians. That should be produced by us in Kern County.
I see no other questions from the media. So if you'd like to make closing remarks.
Appreciate everybody being here very much, taking the time. And this is a really important issue, which is why I think our industry, all of industry, including the employees who are employed in this industry, are really stepping up to make their voices heard, because they know that their future and their family's future depends on it. And that's why this petition is so important. So thanks everybody for attending, and we hope you have a great day.